All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Jennifer Schinke. I am a staff attorney at Inland County's Legal Services, and I will be your moderator today. We will be discussing updates to the 2024 tax filing season with you today. We know that it's, coming to a close, but we hope maybe some of our comments will help as practitioners get into that last little run up to tax day and even beyond that. I have with me Graham O'Neill. He's a policy strategist at Taxpayer Opportunity Network, Prosperity Now. Melanie Malherbe, a managing attorney at the Welfare Law Unit and Tax Benefits Project at Greater Boston Legal Services. And Rebecca Thompson, a senior advisor for the U.S. Department of Treasury. We're going to be giving you lots of updates on this tax season and other important things you need to know as things are continuing. We're going to start with Melanie Malherbe, who's going to be kind of discussing some of those credits and other deadlines that are coming up. Melanie, you want to take it?
Okay. I've led a small project out of our welfare law unit since 2020, focusing on getting the COVID 2020 tax credits and then the 2021 under the ARPA for mostly non-filers. We found the clients who, of course, most likely to have missed getting any of the payments in advance are anyone who didn't file a 2018 or 2019 return, or who weren't getting Social Security, Veterans Administration, VA benefits, or railroad retirement benefits. And even if they got the latter, they would have only gotten advance payments for themselves and not for their children. And in 2020, IRS did have up portals for very briefly for adding children. And, in my experience, most people didn't find out about them or know how to use them in time. So they're through our various outreach efforts, which is, if there's time, I'll mention, we found hordes of people who didn't get all the 2020 stimulus payments they should have, and nor the 2021 stimulus payment and fully refundable child tax credit, and have been, working with them to file. So we're now up against the 2020, the deadline for claiming the credits for 2020, for tax year 2020. And if you never filed for clients who never filed an original return, their drop dead deadline is May 17. So there's at least some time. In our experience, many of the clients who are in this situation do not know how to analyze what they need to do. Some of them have even gotten notices that advance payments were issued to them of the economic impact payments, and returned to IRS, or sent to them, but the clients know they never missed them. You need to not just do a trace, but under the statutory limitations on IRS, there has to be a 2020 return and a recovery rebate credit claim in order for IRS to issue them. Again, even if it was a returned payment to IRS. And a further wrinkle is if folks filed a 2020 return but didn't know to claim the recovery rebate credits for their dependents, or themselves if they didn't get it, they'll be filing an amended return. And although some material out from the IRS says the deadline for claiming these credits seemingly across the board is May 17th, the language in the actual notice, which I'm going to send, I'm going to provide my links and the specific details in an email that will go to people on the webinar today in case you want the details. But the details are much more complicated in the IRS notice about this that came out last year. And the National Taxpayer Advocate, in a long blog article, which of course isn't binding, but it seems we should be conservative. Their interpretation of the IRS notice is that if you filed your original return timely on or before April 1 in 2020, the original time, they viewed the extended time as not altering the actual normal deadline. So if you filed on or before April 1, 2020, your deadline is actually, the current year's deadline. In Massachusetts, it's April 17th because of a holiday of 2024. So if people are needing to file an amended return, they're really up against it right now. And if you filed between April 15th, 2020 and May 17, 2020, your deadline is the 3 years from the date you filed. So, i.e., it could be before May 17. So that can be a challenge, finding the precise date on which clients who filed on their own filed or had helpers file them. So those are the 2020 deadlines. Fortunately for the 2021 payments, the deadline isn't until next April 15, 2025. And so I know a lot of LITCs have not had access to actual filing for clients. And at this juncture, if they haven't gotten help from a free tax preparation program, it's worth trying, but it may be too late because of the capacity. Many in our area are, filled to capacity at this juncture. But for 2021, for our project, it was very helpful to have our own volunteer CPA who could actually do the filing, and we would investigate the facts, eligibility, all the issues in the client's case, and put it all together, and then our volunteer CPA could file. For 2020 right now, of course, we're having to file by paper, but having the CPA prepare it is extremely helpful. Let me know when I should stop, because I could say more about how we've found the clients. But the 2021 payments, $1,400 per client and per eligible dependent, which can include not only qualified children but qualified relatives. The $3,600 for children under 6 at the end of 2021. The $3,000 per child between 6 and 17 in 2021. It's a huge amount of money for the clients who were largely non-filers. And in many states, disabled parents getting SSI or SSDI, they're not even getting any TANF money because the SSI or SSDI is being counted against them. In Massachusetts, which is more progressive in a lot of its policies, it retained the policy of not counting the SSI. But if you happen to have worked and be getting SSDI, that counts dollar for dollar against our minimal cash, partially TANF funded program. So these are folks with very little income. The other clients we've worked with tend to be folks with very marginal employment, but still with some wage withholding to get back that they haven't, and some who qualify for some state and federal EIC, as well as the credits. So there's a lot of money left on the table for this population. Another piece of the population are some of our migrant clients who do qualify under substantial presence test, may have SSNs due to pending asylum applications, but were self-employed in the kind of, doing hair, cleaning houses, not very good records, and no real resources to them to help them, comply with the record keeping requirements. And at least in some cases, we've been able to reconstruct earnings adequately to meet due diligence and assist them in filing. So there's a lot to be gained. And I guess my pitch would be for LITCs to join in for at least helping people get the 2021 credits, which, there's still plenty of time to do. Should I stop, or I could say two more sentences on how we found our clients?
I think you have a couple more minutes, Melanie, given our the way we separated time. If you have some more to add.
Yeah. So what the ways we found clients that were the most effective were a combination of two things. A local family foundation that doesn't give grants but supplies staff time worked with us to put up a website called findyourfunds.org specifically for Massachusetts residents. And the first year we used it to publicize the credits, both the 2020, and by that point it was the 2021 credits were known. It was a little before the advance payments of the 2021 CTC had begun, and worked with our state welfare agency to send notices and texts, and our state agency has made an effort to get cell phone numbers of all clients and get permission to text them, and they communicate about their cases that way, often by text, and very effective for most of the caseload. And so they would send out a text with a link to our Find Your Funds website, and people would get access to information there. For this filing season, we made an expanded effort to put lots of information about VITAs, to not only provide the links available from the umbrella programs the two umbrella programs operating them in Massachusetts, and the AARP link to elder tax sites, but also did our own organization of information about VITAs by area of the state, city and town, and then within Boston, which is huge, by neighborhood, to make it much easier for people to scan through and find all the sites that were remotely, possibly viable for them location wise, and in the hope of getting through. And if we had additional information from calling around to them about hours and methods of contacting them, we put that. We also this year at the outset had our direct phone number to our tax project, but we got over 250 calls in the first few days, so we had to take down our phone number. We also had our direct email address listed, and got almost 300 emailed requests for help. So unfortunately, way beyond our capacity for 2020 returns, and we have wait lists for. We're still working down some of the 2020 wait lists, but there's no way we can do them all. And 2021, though, we do have a wait list, and whether our project can continue in our program priorities is the issue for that. But and in doing this work, some LITCs we have one at GBLS, and during the first couple years, 2020 and 2021, our LITC did do returns for clients seeking the credits, primarily their population, people more attached to the workforce, people who have all their documents, et cetera. Our project was focused on people with one or more of many of the common types of barriers that make it hard for them to even avail themselves of VITAs or LITCs, because they don't have all their papers, they're hard to reach. You have to kind of chase them down, help them get their paperwork. And a lot of it is language barriers. We have migrants from all over in Massachusetts. Reading levels, math levels, lack of tech, lack of access to the internet, domestic violence, people with unstable addresses due to such things as domestic violence, or just general housing instability because of the high cost of housing. especially in Boston area, but throughout Massachusetts. And so there are people who are not getting their notices, even if they do make an effort with IRS. So we've had a lot of things to untangle in these cases. Another notable group that have had more challenging cases are those custodial parents who, because they were the lower earner or getting welfare, assumed they had nothing to get from tax and had defaulted to allowing informally, there's some cases with court orders, but largely informally, the non-custodial parent who was often not providing any child support to claim the children. And in some cases, this was due to DV, and in some cases, this was without the mother's consent. And because of the advance payments initially being premised on the returns filed in 2019, and if there wasn't a 2019 and 2018, these non-custodial parents automatically got the payments. And so we've been representing a lot of mothers who, in fact, were the only eligible person to claim their children as qualified dependents to get the credits, and of course, and encountering e-file rejections and having to paper file, encountering math error notices and having to contest those. So there's a lot of help needed beyond mere filing for a lot of these clients, and often domestic violence and family, the general default to against welfare recipients anybody thinking they have anything to do or anything to gain from the tax system. They really lost out, and so it took quite a bit of advocacy for a lot of these clients to get their money.
Yeah, definitely. Coming from an LITC perspective, there's been a lot of advocacy needed in those situations, Melanie. Thank you so much, Melanie. You gave us a lot of great information. For our viewers, keep in mind, our Q&A is open to ask questions of our panelists. I may bring them up throughout the presentation, or we are also going to have a Q&A session at the end, depending on time. So hopefully we'll get your questions answered. Melanie's done a great job of going from the taxpayer's perspective and the taxpayer advocate's perspective on a lot of these issues. But now we're going to hear from Rebecca Thompson, who works for the IRS, and hear about their direct file program and their other issues from an IRS perspective. Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself and give us all the great information you have from the IRS?
Okay, certainly. Thank you so much for that introduction, Jennifer, and thank you so much, Omid and the group, for inviting us to be here today. And it's great to be here with the ABA having this conversation. I am Rebecca Thompson. I am a senior advisor for stakeholder engagement in the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act program office at the Department of Treasury. Not quite IRS, but I work really, really closely and spend a lot of time with the IRS. Just cannot seem to get away from them. In my role here at Treasury, I interact with various stakeholders to ensure that there's a broad awareness of IRS modernization efforts that have come through and are being funded through the Inflation Reduction Act legislation that was passed a year and a half ago. And that includes the IRS modernization efforts, and including direct file, and as well as making sure that people are aware of the benefits to general public as well, and the impact on the public. So I think I've been circling through and around kind of this tax space, tax policy and administration space for more than a decade now. I got my start running VITA programs at local United Ways in Florida, my home state. And then I worked for a little while as the national liaison for VITA programs at the Taxpayer Opportunity Network. And now in my role, I'm focusing on stakeholder engagement, really connecting partners to raise awareness and spur action where needed for IRS modernization and direct file. So today, as my colleagues have mentioned, and we are in the throes of the filing season, of course, it's April 2nd. The countdown is officially on to the end of the filing season. I just want to take a moment to highlight a couple of developments from the IRS while there's still time for folks to take action. So first, I want to talk about direct file. For the first time ever, eligible tax filers in 12 states have the option to file their taxes online for free directly with the IRS. Folks have been filing for years and years and years. However, this is the first time that we're able to do it actually directly, and we have a direct link to the IRS without, the middleman. It's a simple, easy to use tool. Again, it's available in 12 states. I'll go through those in just a moment. It's available in English and Spanish. It was developed wholly by the IRS in partnership with the United States Digital Service as well, who are our federal government champions who specialize in developing technology for the government. And let me see, I mentioned it's English and Spanish. And again, it's available for taxpayers with relatively simple returns, can use this service to file for free directly with the IRS through the end of the filing season. The IRS is developing this new tool. They were intentional about starting small to get things right. So it is a pilot. Therefore, it's only available in a handful of states. And it really is effective in covering probably about a third of tax situations. And I'll go into the tax situations here a little bit more in a moment. But it is available 24/7. So folks can log on from the comfort of their home, from their car, from their public transportation, really anywhere at any time, and access this tool. It was built mobile first, so it works just as well on a cell phone as it does on a desktop computer. And I will point out that the IRS is really making a real effort to gather and collect feedback continuously, because again, this is a pilot, and so they're really working towards making sure that the quality of the service and the tool are improved even within the filing season. But definitely, if this pilot should continue, if there's a decision to continue the pilot, they want to make sure that they are making the necessary improvements to benefit the users. So let's talk about where it's available. Again, there's 12 pilot states. There are 8 states that do not have a state income tax. Those are Florida, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. And 4 states that do have an income tax: Arizona, California, Massachusetts, New York. So anyone within scope in those states is eligible to use this tool. Now, the scope of the tool I mentioned earlier, it is a limited scope pilot. And so think about eligibility. We're thinking about people who have W-2 wage income or Social Security income, unemployment compensation, interest income of $1,500 or less. So folks who drive for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart are not eligible during this pilot to use the direct file tool, because it does not support 1099 income, gig economy, self-employment are not supported in this iteration of the pilot. The credits that are eligible and folks can claim include the earned income credit, the child tax credit, and the credit for other dependents. So it's important to note that these are the only credits that people can claim through this tool. And if folks get in, and let's say, for an example, that they may be eligible to claim the credit for, the child and dependent care credit or the retirement savers credit, the tool will actually flag that for them and alert them that they may be eligible and they may be missing out, and encourage them to use other free resources to file their returns, which, by the way, it does provide a link and a referral to those other free resources, including VITA. For deductions, folks can take standard deduction is supported only. So no itemized deductions. And then also student loan interest and educator expenses are supported in the tool as well. I think I mentioned earlier that there are about 19 million people who may be eligible for the tool and across those 12 states. And I think what I can do for the folks here is actually to provide some follow-up information. So if you would like state level information on the potential eligible population within your state, I can provide that information as a follow-up as well. The chat support function within Direct File is really key and critical, and is really one of the things that the IRS is really testing this year through this pilot, is to make sure that they are able to provide adequate support for people who are using the tool. So it is a chat first support and help function. So people can access the chat from within the tool, initiate a chat, get their questions answered there as well. That chat function is going to be available from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. We want to make sure that folks get the support and the help that they need. So as we think about who our key audiences might be, we're thinking about benefits recipients across the states, folks who receive SNAP and EBT benefits, maybe WIC, SSA, definitely unemployment, veterans benefits, those who are receiving subsidized housing, even thinking about college students including community college and recent graduates, folks who may only have one job. Recent graduates, again, it's people with student loan debts. Folks in rural communities, we're really keen on making sure that we're reaching those folks. And then, of course, Spanish speakers as well, as Direct File is available in English and in Spanish. And once again, I will let you know there are several opportunities for outreach. I can provide a link that connects you to our website that has some outreach tools that you can use in reaching client audiences or the audiences as well. And I will close with Direct File and let you know that once again, it is available until the end of the filing season this year, as it is a pilot. And then if I have a couple more minutes, I would like to just highlight a few other things that are happening with IRS modernization that you should be aware of and that you can share actually broadly. And these are really things that the IRS has done to make life easier for all of us. And again, it's brought to you by the Inflation Reduction Act. One of the things, I think the first thing that I would highlight is improved call wait times. Anybody who's been around the IRS and has ever, prior to last year, had to call understands what a challenge it has been to get through and get a live person to answer the phone. The IRS is really proud of the work that they've done over the course of the last year to actually improve those call wait times, including, this goes back a couple of years, but the addition of voice and chat bots. And new is this callback feature. So the IRS has finally moved into, I feel like, modern times for call centers, and has implemented a callback feature. So your wait is really short now. And so those are some things that they're doing to make life better for us and make it easier for taxpayers to interact with the IRS in the manner in which they choose. I will also point out that they have extended the services through the Taxpayer Assistance Centers. So all of the Taxpayer Assistance Centers, those who were closed down a few years ago, have reopened, and the IRS has actually initiated and opened a few additional taxpayer centers. They are now offering Saturday services throughout the course of the filing season in several locations. You can find that information on their website, irs.gov. And then several of the tax also are offering extended service hours as well during the filing season, just to make sure that folks can get in and get their questions answered and interact with the IRS in the manner that's most suitable for them. 3 more. One is Where's My Refund? So Where's My Refund is new and improved this year. There's also a Where's My Amended Return feature on the IRS website that allows for folks to actually gives better insight and tracking into the processing and where the refund and the returns are. Another one is the secure document upload tool. So when people get a letter from the IRS and they need to respond, the IRS has made it easier for them to get the information back to them through the use of the secure document upload tool. And then finally, speaking of when folks get a letter from the IRS, now and definitely in the coming months, they will be much more understandable and easier to read, as the IRS is making a lot of improvements to the notices and correspondence, including improving the look and feel of those letters and using simpler language for folks. So those are all the great things that I can think of right now that the IRS is doing to make life better for all of us. And with that, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. And I'll turn it back over to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I mean, one thought I had during your presentation, Rebecca, was the direct file is just for the 2023 returns, correct? Not any other back years, correct?
That is correct. And
then we did have a question from our audience. Will the Saturday dates at the assistance centers be extended after the filing season?
They typically, I think last year they did circle back around and do some Saturday dates throughout the course of the year. I would say that the best thing to do would be to keep an eye out on the IRS website for those offerings.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, Rebecca, and giving us, that IRS Treasury perspective. Last but certainly not least, we have Graham O'Neill, who is going to be talking about our wonderful VITA programs and some other things. Graham, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of discuss?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Graham O'Neill. I am with Prosperity Now, the Taxpayer Opportunity Network, which you may have heard of just a few seconds ago from Rebecca Thompson, as Rebecca and I used to work together. In fact, sometimes I'm still referred to as the new Rebecca in our offices. But I can never hope to fill her shoes. She's amazing. So just a little bit about the Taxpayer Opportunity Network and Prosperity Now. Prosperity Now, in general, is dedicated to creating a just and equitable economy, especially in terms of racial equity. The Taxpayer Opportunity Network is one of our 4 different networks that we have. It's one of our largest networks, and thanks in large part to Rebecca, where we connect free tax preparation programs, advocates, LITC programs like many of the people here today, and other stakeholders to resources and information, as well as their peers and training to help them do the work they do supporting low to moderate income individuals, especially vulnerable populations. In one of those roles, I have the pleasure of being a direct liaison with the IRS Spec Office. That's the office that runs the VITA program, and we get to act as the voice for the VITA programs across the country. And that happens in a lot of different ways. It could be everything from helping a VITA program access the funding that they were awarded, or running our tax roundtable listserv, which is about 1,000 of the biggest, and I say this with love as I'm one of them, biggest tax nerds in the country, who during the course of the tax season, which, for many of us here is the entire year, can be a place to go to get your questions answered. You're filing a return and you have a question about is whether or not something in scope, or whether or not this piece of tax law applies in this situation, or what have you. It's a place where you can quickly go, send an email, get that question out there, and I promise you would get 4 to 5 different answers very quickly, as we have some of the most amazing network members that, even though they're in the middle of their own tax season, will take the time to answer a fellow VITA practitioner or volunteers their question, because they know they're out there doing the same kind of good work. Membership to the Taxpayer Opportunity Network is open to anyone. When I'm done, I'll put a link in the chat to how you can sign up. It's very, very simple. You'll start to get newsletters from us. You'll start to get information more about the VITA program. I know a lot of people here are not active VITA participants. You might be an LITC program, which, Melanie, I believe you may have said this earlier, but being an LITC program does not mean you can't be a VITA program as well. Before I came to the Taxpayer Opportunity Network and Prosperity Now, I was a director at one of the VITA programs here in Philadelphia. I was our director of partnerships, which kind of morphed into our director of our virtual program when the pandemic hit. And one of the things we did was, especially with that virtual program, we were able to partner with our local LITCs, some of whom are in the room today, and not only get them to have a referral system between us that was formalized, but by the time I left, we were just launching our first VITA site within a LITC program. So it wasn't a full VITA site, it was just an intake site, but it was for those times when as an LITC program, you're working with a client and you get to that point where they need to file an amended return or even file a return or just something that you can't do as an LITC. And you would refer them to VITA. A lot of times we would find that that person would show up to the one of our VITA sites, and the message that they either came from LITC or what exactly they needed happening was lost along the way, and chaos ensued. We filed the wrong form, which everybody here knows. File the wrong form, especially if it's paper, that can be a year-long problem trying to get that reworked. So what we would do is very quickly we would have the LITC person, one of their staff members or one of their students or what have you, they would be trained to become a VITA intake certified person, which just means that they would, instead of referring the person directly to us by giving a name and number, they would put their information into our virtual system. That way we had not only all the tax information we needed, the documents we needed in a secure way, but we could also have a note left to us by the LITC staff to say, hey, this is what needs to happen specifically. So that's just one way that you can, as LITC people, work together with your VITA organization. And all that comes around for me to say, one of the things you can do as a VITA LITC organization or anyone by joining the Taxpayer Opportunity Network is you can go to that same listserv, or you can email me or one of my colleagues, and we can help connect you with the VITA program that's in your community. A lot of times you can go to the IRS for that kind of help, but I think the IRS is the IRS. The spec office is spread across the country. A lot of one staff for a lot of different VITA programs. So sometimes they need some help, and sometimes we stand in to act as that support for them. We also do a lot of advocacy work. I think Rebecca would know the exact answers, but right now there is $40 million every year appropriated toward the VITA program. As early as 10 years ago, I believe it was less than half of that. And through the work of both our policy team here at Prosperity Now and the Taxpayer Opportunity Network, but also through the advocacy of the network of folks that we built, now that funding is up to $40 billion. So that's just another piece of the program that we do. We also work with state and local governments or VITA organizations, Taxpayer Opportunity Network members of all kinds, to work at the state and local level to advocate for state EITCs, for local, here in Philadelphia, the wage tax refund petition, very long word to say that, get to help folks that are in need get a little bit of the city income tax that is, we call the wage tax, back into their pockets. So there's some of the things we do, just some more updates, because we have this voice as or this position as kind of a national advocate working with the IRS. We get to learn a little bit more about the operations of the VITA program throughout the year. And I just wanted to give a little update on where VITA is as a program right now. So as of 3/25, VITA programs, and that's VITA programs that are either getting a grant, unfunded, TCE programs, tax counseling for the elderly, or an AARP program, they have submitted a certain number of returns, but most importantly, $3.2 million, 3.2 million returns as of 3/25 were submitted, which is not significantly, but is well, I'll say significantly, because since 2019, since 2020, we've been below numbers year to year because of the pandemic. Now, where this is the first time we're on track to exceed the numbers for the first time. So this year we're hoping to have the largest number of returns that the VITA program has ever done. And of those 3.2 million accepted returns, they have claimed in total, I won't give you the whole long number, but it's $3.9 billion of refunds. So we think this year is going to be tremendously impactful. Most importantly, it's going to be kind of a signal to the VITA community, to those that fund VITA, to those that work with VITA, that we are finally emerging from the repercussions of the COVID pandemic. I will say, though, that the biggest issue that VITA was having is that we lost about 60% of our volunteers when COVID happened. And what I mean by that is that in 2019, between 2019 and 2020 and 2021, 60% of the volunteers that were there in 2019, they have never come back. And they still have not come back. I think we are somewhere around, at a 40% deficit right now. So even though we're about to exceed the numbers that we've done in the past, we are still significantly short in manpower. And I say that to encourage everyone here to spread the word, no matter what your profession, that VITA in your community really needs volunteers. And again, I'll put the Taxpayer Opportunity Network's information in the chat so that people can sign up and be informed about how the best ways are to do that, that kind of thing. Those are the facts and figures that I had listed. I think we're at 11:43, so I want to give time for us to do the Q&A that I know we wanted to do, and happy to take questions.
Well, thank you, Graham. That was a lot of great information about VITA clinics. I know myself as an LITC practitioner refer to LITCs quite often. We did have a question that may be in your scope. Can the spec VITA offer software for LITCs to prepare tax returns for 2020 and 2021 so that they can claim the recovery rebate credits?
So I think the person's question is, well, essentially it boils down to, can someone become an LITC, become a VITA program? I think is kind of what I'm hearing. I think there even might be a little bit of the urgency in there, saying, can they do it right now? Bigger question is LITCs, as far as I'm aware, can become VITA programs. Most organizations of all stripes can become a VITA program. Whether or not you become funded by VITA, by the IRS to do that work is another matter. But as long as you fill out some IRS forms, which, actually aren't that bad, as far as IRS form goes, you can become a VITA organization, get certified, and get that software. So that's the bigger answer. I don't know if at this point during the year, if you did that, if you'd be able to get that software, get signed up that quickly. I'd be happy to ask, and we can send this group some follow-up information about whether or not that's possible. If Rebecca has an answer to that question, please jump in. I was going to say, and you can't plan.
I think, oh yeah. The software, I think that we have passed the window for the time that you can actually order software. That was at the end of January, and we've got 2 weeks left in the filing season. So my suggestion would be to form a relationship with your local VITA partner, and make sure that LITCs and Graham has some great resources around like referring VITAs to LITCs and making sure that the two are talking and connecting in your local community. So I think it's a great opportunity to, if you don't have a relationship with your local VITA partner, let me encourage everyone here to forge a relationship, to find out who that local VITA partner, or, in some communities there are multiple. But yeah, form a relationship with them and set up a referral process. It could be informal. Referral process whereby if you have clients that come in that need prior year returns, your VITA partner can take care of those.
Yes, I do believe that having that relationship can be vital, with referrals going both ways. And so it can be really helpful for the LITCs to have that relationship with their local VITAs, because not only can we refer to them to get returns done so we can do our job further, but also they can also refer when they know that a client is having bigger issues. So again, a plug. If you don't, that's a great thing, I believe. There was another question that I think that thank you, Melanie, did answer in the chat, but that I think is something that can be answered by a couple of us in the broader panel. How do you go about helping self-employed people who don't have 1099s and they have poor record keeping? There's this individual says they have a hard time with those individuals. I know I've come across it quite a bit. What about you, Graham, or even Melanie, if you have further comment?
I mean, I can give an example if you want, if you have one.
No, go ahead, Melanie.
One of our clients who did house cleaning but didn't keep any records, but did have a bank account and sometimes was paid in checks. We got, the way I've been able to do this project at all is we got a congressionally directed spending grant that we stretched out over 2 years. Thanks to Senators Markey and Warren. We actually only got it the end of August 2022, the actual money. But in any event, we had a paralegal advocate who just did painstaking work regarding all the money the client had, the checks, who she worked for, and just did a very careful reconstruction with whatever available information there was of income. And for income, tried to be precise, because underestimating isn't good, but overestimating isn't good either, because of the risk of claiming too much EITC. And then on expenses, again, did a careful reconstruction of the products used, and there weren't very many expenses that could reduce countable income. But that's how we did it, using people's bank accounts, super detailed interviewing, and any other third-party information they could get after the fact about the jobs they had. And, obviously easier for people who had fairly stable house cleaning jobs. So we're currently struggling with someone who did hair, and we may not be able to help them. So it feels like an unmet need for folks doing incredibly low wage self-employment, an unmet need to provide any source of training on how to do record keeping. And one of the other impediments is that some of the clients, are undocumented, And if they get ITINs, they were able to claim the 20, if they'd gotten ITINs in time, they were able to claim the 2021 credits. And if there are credits like this again in the future, it's relevant to them to be reporting. We also have in Massachusetts, since beginning in 2021, we had a very tiny dependent credit, fully refundable dependent credit. And this year it was much expanded for 2023. More money, no cap on the number of children, and available to ITIN holders. So another situation in which it's worthwhile for very low income families to have assistance reconstructing their self-employment, and even more challenging because they've been forced to do it under the radar, due to their lack of work authorization.
Yeah, I would thank you, Melanie, so much. That was a great detailed answer. I would agree with Melanie that the bank statements and credit card statements are vital in those situations because they have some form of tangible, visible something. But again, in those situations, sometimes people like cash for things and it can get difficult. And yeah, I think more education towards them may be a good thought, Melanie. Anyone else have any comments? All right, we'll give it another moment, but does anyone else have any questions? Don't hesitate to put your questions in the Q&A box. There is another pending question that this might be more for Rebecca, but I'm not 100% this is actually something she may be able to answer. But when documents are submitted using the secure upload tool, why is the client getting a notice of deficiency when the matter is not resolved?
I think I can take a stab at this.
Or Graham too. I think it looked like he wanted to answer that one.
Yeah, I one of the things that I do is I sit on something called the National Practitioner Liaison group, which is a group the IRS puts together through their National Practitioner Liaison office, where they have representatives from the mainly the tax filing, tax preparing industry, where they can give updates to. And this topic of the secure document uploading tool has come up quite a bit. And this actual question has been asked there. So again, this is not IRS gospel, but what I've heard is in this situation, someone has uploaded to the secure upload tool, secure document uploader. They're still getting that that notice of deficiency because things have crossed in the cloud, as I've heard someone say before. And that just means that when someone puts something up into the document upload tool, it does still need to be looked over and still need to be put into the system, so to speak. So it's not an immediate, instantaneous process. That's what's happening. So someone can upload something, but still get that notice of deficiency because it hasn't been registered as being uploaded. I think the IRS in general, throughout this modernization program, since it's modernizing things in the bite-sized pieces that it can, there's oftentimes situations like this where it's not an instantaneous system. It's just a better way of getting your information to the IRS. You're going to get it much faster by uploading it than you are by mailing it. And eventually, I'm sure the IRS hopes to have that instantaneous process happen, or at least have it happen much more in real time.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this issue?
That was my thought. They may have gotten crossed in the cloud. That it takes a little while for things to actually kind of sort themselves out still. I will say that if it persists, two options that I'm sure as LITCs you're aware of. One is the Taxpayer Assistance Center is always a great option to kind of get things unstuck in the early stages if you can. And then of course, for those that are persistent option, persistent concerns and issues, and things just aren't getting done, then there's the Taxpayer Advocate Service, is another, which you all know, I'm sure.
Well, it looks like we have a follow-up to that one, to this question. So once those notice of deficiencies are issued, even though they've uploaded documents that have not been processed, should we advise the client to file a petition to retain his rights or wait for the IRS to process documents?
I think that's an LITC and an attorney answer.
I, as an LITC practitioner, would say I would file it to be safe and retain rights because one was issued. Any other comments from Melanie or Graham?
There's so many things that can go wrong, and information not being in the right place, or clients not having gotten notices that they didn't respond to earlier. So there are all sorts of things that would have gone on. And, in our case, if a case needs to go to tax court, I would be working with our LITC jointly. We have one we're working on today, to file the petition and file it with as much preparation and good information as possible. And one option is to wait to nearer the deadline for filing, the 90-day deadline to file in tax court, to see if anything resolves. But yes, we have a case where, in response to a math error notice, I provided all manner of documentation about why my client was the only person qualified to claim her 3 children, and her abusive husband did not have the right in tax year 2021. And all of a sudden it was in exams, and none of that information was in front of the examiner. Longer, complicated story, but yeah, I mean, preserving rights and fleshing out the facts, and treating it like a court case would be my advice.
All right. So have any of us had a situation where clients have had cryptocurrency transactions? And if so, how have you addressed it on the returns?
Just a real quick, unfortunately not provide an answer, but so for VITA, oftentimes there's things that are out of scope, meaning that the IRS has said that they do not want VITA organizations working on those issues. And I've haven't been done a VITA return since the following tax season, but I believe cryptocurrency is still out of scope for VITA.
Yeah, my experience with cryptocurrency is more after the return's been filed, and usually when they accidentally leave it off because they didn't really make a profit because they bought and sold for close to the amounts they didn't put it on the return. And that's when I just proved to the IRS that, okay, this is what they bought it for, this is what they sold it for. But so my perspective wouldn't be from the return. Anyone else have any perspective?
My client population doesn't deal with cryptocurrency. So I know there have been a number of IRS bulletins and alerts about cryptocurrency recently. So there's probably material online.
All right, well, I want to thank our panel very much for joining us and giving some great information and feedback. I know our audience is probably thinking it's for pretty much at the end, but I'm hoping of tax season, but I'm hoping our presentation gave some helpful hints as we're heading to the end, or even an extension for those clients that gets extensions, which happens very often as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Great thing. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.